Hello and welcome back to my channel. The Ronde van Vlaanderen just ended a few minutes ago and I'm recording this, and it was an amazing race. Once again, these cobbled monuments almost never disappoint. This time around it was won by Alberto Bettiol in front of Kasper Asgreen. And I actually mentioned Bettiol that he would be the captain for Education First. A lot of people said that it was still Van Marke who would and should be the captain for that team, but I said I don't believe that. I said also in my previous video that I think Bettiol is currently the better rider and they should decide to ride for him. Paid off. It was actually his first professional victory, so taking a first professional victory in a monument, just amazing ride by the young Italian. But let's see how it all happened. We had a break of the day of only 4 riders today. It was Kenneth van Rooij for Sport Vlaanderen, Ugo Ule of Astana, Damien Touzé of Cofidis, and Jesper Asselman of Roompot. So I expected more people, especially for a monument, for a race of almost 270 kilometers of distance. Only 4 guys managed. They got a gap of around 8 to 10 minutes, and then it was down to De Koning to keep that in check. Most of the time it was actually Tim de Klerk who set the tempo in the peloton, but he also got help from Kaiser and Kasper Asken. Actually, he was one of the 3 guys for De Koning who were supposed to be just helpers, but in the end it turned out differently, but we'll come to that later. Because we got sad news with 160 kilometers to go, a long way from the finish. We had a crash and Nicky Terpstra stayed down. He was actually unconscious for a little bit over 2 minutes actually. Seemed really dangerous. Now it is believed that he just has a concussion, but still he will also miss Paris-Roubaix, so one of the favorites gone. The defending champion for this race was out, and with that the race, it turned out Nicky Terpstra did not have the best form, but still you don't wish for anybody to crash out. So sad news of the day. But the race really blew apart 60 kilometers later, when it was actually Magnus Cort who first attacked. Sky followed and the peloton blew apart. It was basically split in half in 2 parts. In the group behind were riders like Naesen, like Gilbert, and they chased for quite a while, for like 15 to 20 kilometers. They had to chase from 100 kilometers to go to 80 kilometers to go. Then only there was a regrouping. Out of the front group we had an attack of Belgian champion Yves Lampaert, who was joined by Nelson Oliveira, who I talked about before, as a great rider. Movistar in general rode a really great race. They attacked a lot today, but yeah, Oliveira, and also Pöstelberger, who also in the last week tried his luck multiple times. So yeah, riders you would expect to attack went from very long. They went with 90 kilometers to go. Got a gap of about 20 seconds or so. Then when there was the regrouping of the peloton, they got reeled back in with about 75 kilometers to go. And then it was Mohoric who attacked, got a few seconds for about 5 kilometers or so. And then he was caught again. After that we had for a number of kilometers, basically 20 kilometers, on and on, attacking after attacking from different riders. No one really got a gap, so can't really mention them all who tried his luck, because sometimes I got like 5 seconds, got back into the peloton after a kilometer or 2. Same again with a different rider. And then with about 50 kilometers to go, we had a really interesting group that consisted of Sepp van Marke, Kasper Asgreen, and The third rider was Stein Vandenberg, actually, in that group. That was shortly after a bad crash of Mathieu van der Poel, who had also his fair share of bad luck today, but still finished a good race in the end. But Van der Poel, he had a puncture, was waving his hand for a spare wheel, and in doing so lost control over his front wheel and crashed. He was seen holding his arm, sitting on the ground for a while, but he got back in, actually, even though the race was on, definitely at that moment, so I thought he would lose too much energy after he made the junction again. But he surprised me a lot today, actually. I said I don't believe in him quite yet, because he has never raced over such a long distance. But he managed today, got a decent result in the end. So great ride for him. But yeah, the group of Askren van Marke and Stein Vandenberg was really interesting. Then a few kilometers later, it was Dylan van Baarle who joined them. So there were, for a short while, there were 4 riders. Then Vandenberg dropped, and they were down to 3 again. And then, with about 27 kilometers to go, so they were in the lead for 25 kilometers, this group of 3 to 4 guys. Really interesting group. For a while I thought they could make it, and this could actually be the first time that Van Marke or Stein Vandenberg, 2 of the nearly mans of the decade, they could actually win something. But then with 27 kilometers to go, there was a surprising move. It was Sepp van Marke got pulled back into the chasing group to help his teammates. He was told to drop back and work for Alberto Bettiol. They also had Sebastian Langefeld in the group, but yeah, Van Marke was told, drop back, do your work for your captain. Like I said, Van Marke no longer has the status of unquestioned leader. He lost that because he was once seen as one of the big talents on cobblestones, but did never really deliver on those promises, on those high hopes people had for him. And in the end, now he gets overtaken by a younger rider who wins a monument in his first pro victory, or as his first pro victory. So Alberto Bettiol is the man not only of the moment, but also of the future for that team, probably on the cobbles. I think he will be the captain again for Paris-Roubaix, as he should be after winning the Ronde. But yeah, it was a little bit surprising. I thought they would give Van Marke at least the chance to ride for his own, and if they got reeled back in, then Bettiol would attack. But it was the other way around. They dropped him back. And then it was actually Bob Jongels who tried to attack, but he did not get a gap for the Koenig. Basically every favorite was following. There was a group of then about 20 riders, 15 to 20 riders when we entered the last Claremont with about 20 kilometers to go. And there it was Alberto Bettiol where he made his decisive move, where he dropped everyone else. And after that it was pretty easy for him because the other teams, they could not work together because the Koenig, like I said, they actually had multiple options, but they did not work as a team in the final. Gilbert and Stieber got dropped, but they still had Yves Lampaert, Caspar Askren, and also Bob Jongels in the group. But they did not work for one of the three riders because they knew, well, we have sprinters here with us. We have Christoph, we have Sagan, we have Trentin, we have Valverde, we have Michael Matthews. All of them would outsprint us if we just reel in Alberto Bettiol, so why should we work? So they accepted basically a second place, which they then later secured by Caspar Askren, who was in the breakaway, was chasing down breakaways, and in the end finished second on the podium. Amazing race by the young Dane, his first pro season also. But yeah, really, really promising riders on the podium. Then the third rider on the podium who won the sprint finish out of that reduced group of 15 riders was Alexander Kristoff, who beat Van der Poel to 4th place. Those were the results I could see immediately after the race. This is when I started recording, so I don't know the exact formation of the rest of the top 10, but we also had Valverde in that group, we had Van Avermaet in that group, like I said, Jongels and Lampard in that group. We had Sebastian Langefeld in the group, who was controlling this group for Bettiol. So we had Wout van Aert in that group. So Ollie Naesen. All the favorites were basically there, except Stieber, who got dropped way before. Did not seem to have the best day. But yeah, all the other favorites were there, but they could not work together. There were 15 riders, but unable to form an alliance because everyone was scared, if I work now, I will lose the sprint in the finale. And that is actually the tactic that over the last few years very, very often worked perfectly for De Koning. This time around it worked perfectly for Education First. They had the first solo rider who got a decent gap, and he finished it off because the riders behind were too scared to really commit. Sagan did not ride full gas. Van Avermaet did not go full tempo. Van Aert didn't. De Koning didn't because they didn't have the sprinters in the end. Yeah, who should do the work? Everyone was looking at each other, and in no time he had a gap of about 20-25 seconds. Alberto Bettiol, that is. And they just couldn't take it back, because if they were not working together, it's impossible for them to get him back after the Paterberg for 14 kilometers of flat roads. Unable to reel him in. And in previous monuments, we have seen that with Bob Jungels last year. We have seen it with Gilbert when he won his Ronde van Vlaanderen. We've seen it with Niki Terpstra when he won his last year, or even Niki Terpstra's Paris-Roubaix a few years earlier. That was also when he attacked with, I think it was 7 kilometers to go back in the day. And no one was able or was willing to reel him in. He had Bonen back in the group. The captain was obviously Tom Bonen, but Terpstra was the first to attack, the first one to get a gap, and after that no one wanted to chase him down, afraid of being the loser in the sprint later on. This seems to be a great tactic at the moment, but you need to pick the right moment for these kind of attacks. I talked about it before with Matteo Trentin, that he tried exactly these kind of attacks. He basically learned them at Quick-Step, and he couldn't finish it off because in his cases they actually had riders to spend. There were multiple teams with multiple riders who could then spend 1 or 2 riders to chase him down, and he would have wasted his efforts and did not get the rewards afterwards for his courageous attacks. While this time around Bettiol was rewarded because he picked a moment where no De Koning rider could follow him, the team with strength in numbers, because at that moment on the Klaremont, Jongels was a little bit struggling. Asgreen was in the breakaway for a number of kilometers. He was spent and had to recover. And Lampard was also in the middle of the group and could not immediately get on his wheel. So yeah. And then if they're probably, or so I thought, best rider for the day is Daniel Stieber, is not in his best form. I don't know if he got also the illness that Gilbert had. Gilbert was starting the race, but we all knew he was ill. But still, even if none of their 4 guys finish on the podium, today they got a 5th guy. Today they got Kasper Asgreen on the podium, finishing in 2nd place after a late attack. Amazing ride by him. Really, really amazing ride. I can't stress that enough. This young Dane had one hell of a ride. Alberto Bettiol is definitely a deserving winner of this race, but the strongest rider of the day award must go to Kasper Asgreen, because he chased down breakaways for 100 kilometers, then was in a breakaway for about 30 kilometers, and still managed to escape the group of super strong favorites for the race in the last kilometer of the race and finish on the podium of a monument. That guy basically rode full gas for, I don't know, 150 kilometers straight, with just very few instances of recuperation. Amazing ride, really great ride by him. So now we look forward to the next coupled monument, but we look also forward to Itzulia, which is starting tomorrow, and I think I'll do a video about tomorrow morning about that race. Until then, I'm out.